6 Crazy Glitch in the Matrix Stories. So I'm going to start off by telling you guys about my experience. It all started when I was 15 years old. I went to my friend's house. Her name was Ellie. We were best friends in school, and also we lived opposite to each other, so I'd always go to hers after school. She had a balcony, and because she didn't smoke, I would go on the balcony and have a smoke every time I'm there. Well, on this particular day I went onto the balcony, and bearing in mind I was wearing my uniform, just for your information, I was having my cigarette, and whilst I was smoking I was looking down at the east below. I ended up seeing somebody who was walking through the estate. The person was wearing a jacket that was 2 shades of blue, oversized jeans with cartoon characters, and red and white trainers. As I looked at the person, I realized, whilst now in complete and utter shock, that person walking right in front of my eyes was me, wearing exactly what I would normally wear if not in my uniform. As I was going through an American hip-hop gangsta phase, was me. I stood still staring at myself, not knowing whether to shout or scream. After myself was out of my sight, I was able to move again, but was still too shocked and scared to say anything to my friend. I walking back inside where my friend was sitting, when she asked me what happened. "You look like you've seen a ghost, lol." So then I replied, "Trust me, you wouldn't believe me if I told you." Till this day I still don't know what happened that day, and to be honest don't think I'd ever be able to. This morning I was walking my dog in a nearby park. We almost always take a hidden path through a mini forest, so to speak. Just like today. The path to walk is pretty small/thin, but it's a good way to let the dog off the leash. Around halfway through I hear a jogger coming closer from in front of us. So I put my dog on the leash and let the jogger pass. She says good morning. Thank you, and I do the same. So far, so good and boring. Now we jump around 5 minutes ahead and we are almost at the end of the path. This is the moment I turn around and call for my dog to put her on the leash, because there are always wild rabbits and I don't want her to hunt after them. So I turn around. And I see and hear the jogger from before, out of nowhere. The same clothes, but this time from behind. Running the opposite way, so the way where I was walking like 15 seconds ago, and where she would have needed to run past me, again. Not realizing what was going on, I called my dog, so that she doesn't try to run after her, because she is always playful and wants to greet people. After I focused on my dog to stop going after her, which she wanted to, because she definitely saw her as well, I then looked up again, and of course, she was nowhere to be seen. Which makes sense, because she couldn't have been there in the first place. Right after that my dog acted weird. She put her nose up in the air and started sniffing, moving around a bit nervous. I'm convinced it was also a "what the heck was that?" moment for her. I thought the same and began to realize that what had just happened was simply impossible. There is no way she passed me without me noticing her on this small path. But I put my dog on the leash and we left the path. She calmed down quickly and we went ahead. I always go right onto a big grass area after leaving the path, from where I then leave the park. After only a few steps on the grass I hear a jogger from the main path of the park to the left of me. I look over, and yes, it's her again. She ran a circle, which makes sense. But this was my definite "don't even try to explain this away" moment, because there is no way she could have made it in time to this place from where I saw her the second time. From where we first met? Sure. But not from the second encounter. Not even Usain Bolt would have been fast enough. I'm convinced I saw some kind of echo from 5 minutes earlier of her. My fiancé called off our engagement a few months ago. We'd been circling the drain for a few months, but I genuinely thought we'd be able to pull through with some work and improved communication, because our relationship felt different than previous relationships, like it was supposed to happen. When I met her, my first thought was, oh, that's what she looks like. I'm surprised she's wearing a dress. As if I knew her? I don't know. The beginning was easy, wonderful, and so comfortable it felt like we'd known each other forever. Fast forward to the breakup. I was alternating between packing my things, journaling, and feverishly researching communication techniques, grasping at straws as to how to stay together. Then it happened. I was sitting on the couch and I heard a voice say, "You are not her teacher." It came to me like the truth. The voice sounded like it came from within my mind, but like an auditory memory. Like I heard it, but I knew it was not an external stimulus. I knew it came from within my mind, a thought/sound/knowing that was placed into my consciousness. I immediately knew it to be true. All thoughts seem completely subjective compared to the level of truth in this sentence. This wasn't like an epiphany, it was as if I heard a voice communicating a complete thought. It was not an intrusive thought, or it wouldn't have felt like the truth. I couldn't rule out temporary psychosis/auditory hallucination due to stress, but the voice was so right, even though I didn't want to believe it, and it gave me the feeling of being the absolute truth. It helped me to let go of a lot, and process a ton from our relationship. Recently, my ex and I decided to talk to gain closure. I didn't know where to begin, but I decided to lead with the voice because it perfectly encompassed why we couldn't be together from my side. I told her, she listened, and then she said she heard a voice around the same time. She had the exact same feeling of truth, and now you have to deal with that knowledge vibe. Her voice told her that she cannot fix my inner pain. To say these voices were spot on with their assessment would be an understatement. It's also incredibly strange that we both heard a similar voice and we both knew it to be the truth, and we were both given the most perfectly succinct and relevant truth bombs. I have a sister that is going to her junior prom this year, which has now been postponed due to the virus, but that's not important to this story. We went to get her dress and all that jazz, but of course, my sister is rather short, so upon buying her dress, we knew that we would have to reach out to some kind of seamstress to hem it for her. My mom knew of no seamstresses or anything like that from previous experience, so she started asking around and whatever to all of her friends, but none had anyone who would have been available for the next 4 months. They were all overbooked due to prom. After several weeks, my mom spoke to my aunt who, mind you, she does not speak too often. So my mom gets a name from her and calls to speak with this lady named Jess. Please keep in mind that my aunt hadn't had any contact with this woman in the last 6 to 12 months, and did not reach out to tell her that she had given her information to anyone when she gave my mom her name. This is where things get super weird. About a week later, my mom called to schedule a meeting for Jess to hem my sister's dress. The next day, my aunt reached out to my mom once again to chat over the phone, which again is a little out of the ordinary because they don't talk often. My aunt made a comment to my mom about these strange photos that were somehow added in with her order at our local Walgreens. I guess she ordered pictures to be printed, and some strange random photos were added in with her own. Guess whose photos these were? Jess's. What are the odds that Jess's photos get mixed in with my aunt's at our Walgreens? Also note that Jess lives several towns over, the day after my mom decided to finally call about the prom dress. When there has been absolutely no communication between the two of them for at least 6 months. My aunt contacted Jess immediately when she recognized her in them, and Jess was just as bewildered as all of us. She swore she never sent those specific photos to anyone, for they were just random pictures of some furniture and some of her and her husband. I don't know if I'm looking at this wrong or if I'm just being dramatic about it, but I think the whole situation is just bizarre, and just seems too random to be random. Please let me know what you all think below. I'm eager to hear other explanations and possibilities. I had a very strange morning where I was about to run late for work, because I kept snoozing my alarm. And when I went out to my car, I noticed the far back right window that doesn't open on my SUV was shattered but still intact in the frame. Like when they look pixelated. I assumed it was the warm morning heating up after a cold night, which is a thing that rarely happens to cars. I touched it from the outside and inside to see how fragile it still was, and was fairly stable, but obviously bad, so I decided to go inside to get gaff tape to hold it up temporarily. Deciding to go inside is the last thing I remember. Suddenly, I'm waking up again, but it's 2 hours before my alarm goes off and I'm completely confused what happened. Then when I'm leaving, I expect to see my broken window and it's not. It didn't feel like a dream, it was real. I was completely conscious. Now recalling it, feels like a lucid dream. Except I've had lucid dreams where I can identify them and know I'm in a lucid dream. This time it felt like I knew I was in reality that changed. I'm so thrown off. I even remember thinking during the initial morning that my luck was so bad that my window shattered that I wished it was a dream. Somehow my wish came true? I guess I should be lucky that I didn't end up having that shattered glass and being late to work. Now, I know false mornings are a very common dream, like going to work or school without pants on or a test you didn't study for, some aspect that makes it slightly whimsical or off from reality. My situation didn't have that same resonance and felt just like every other morning. One dark night, at around 3 a.m., my friend Emily and I shared a cigarette on her front porch. We faced an old community playground that was built just across the street from her apartment. The night had completely engulfed the small park, and only a few streetlights dimly lit the edges. Trees surrounded the perimeter, and in its center were aging wooden structures for kids to play on. The air was already a bit eerie, but it suddenly took a turn when we heard a voice come from the darkness. It was soft enough that I couldn't understand it, but Emily and I both agreed that someone was speaking from the structures. Soon, we heard a reply, and then maybe a third, until at least 3 distinguishable adult male voices were quietly conversing in the middle of the night. And this is when it gets weirder. The voices soon came to a halt, and then Emily and I both witnessed a flashlight turn on and start looking around the playground floor. The light illuminated the ground around them, but we couldn't distinguish any physical characteristics. We heard some footsteps as they were walking in and around the structures, but other than that they were in silence. Soon after, a second flashlight turned on. Next, a third. Then a fourth. Until, one by one, a total of 8 or 9 different flashlights were suddenly lit and roaming the playground. Their steps grew louder as they paced across the wood chips. The lights that turned on were maybe 10 to 15 feet apart from another. So it wasn't like people huddled, turned on their flashlights, and then spread out. It seemed like they were already planted in separate places to start. Soon after, they all stopped, all at once. No more footsteps. No more lights. No more voices. It was like they all completely vanished. We were mind blown. All of this happened in like 2 minutes or less. We finished our cigarette, and stayed outside a bit longer. No one seemed to enter or exit the playground. We saw no cars turn on or go by. We quietly listened for more footsteps or voices and there was nothing. We both recounted what we saw and confirmed that it couldn't have been a hallucination, it really happened. To this day, I have no explanation. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like the video and subscribe.